And welcome to another edition of the Wake Up Late with Dougie show. I am your host, Dougie Almeida, coming to you from Simpsonville, South Carolina, where I'm blending in. And we got a great show for you today, by the way. And much of my early, especially in current comedy success, can be owed to a handful of people or organizations. But one of those organizations is the World Series of Comedy, which is a comedy festival held every year. And today, we have the president and vice president, the two dudes of the World Series of Comedy, and I can call them my friends because I've been lingering around with that festival and haven't won it once. But this may be the year, and I'm not just going to be, kissing ass here with these guys, but and I'm sure they're going to tell you about some of my bad moments. Anyway, without further ado, let me bring to the show my friends, Mr. Joe Lowers and Jason Rowland from the World Series of Comedy. How's it going, fella?
Hey, Dougie. What's up?
Hey, Dougie.
That was some of the funniest stuff you ever did, that opening.
Yeah.
And you're going to win? Yeah, that's good. If you would send a video with that.
Yeah.
Simpsonville, South Carolina. Is that like the Springfield of that state or what?
You mean like the Simpsonville? Yeah, it is a. It's nice. I mean, we love it. Simply put, happy wife, happy life. My wife loves it here, in comparison to living in South Florida. So it's, but if you want to move here and you want to like crowd the place up, stay the fuck out. It's a piece of shit. This is like Beirut here. All right, don't listen to anything I ever say. Don't come to Greenville, South Carolina. Go to Texas. Go to Texas. Now so you're in Canada. Yeah, we're about 15, 20 minutes from Greenville.
Have you worked at the Zone there?
Yes.
Cool.
Try to help. Yeah, I live in Vancouver in Canada, so getting across the border for the last 2 years has been a bit of a pain in the ass.
Exactly. Now, did the Prime Minister freeze your assets? And I mean, no, you guys got a tyrant in Canada. Holy,
it doesn't matter, Dougie. He's good looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We vote. We only get pictures. We don't get names on our election cards. So it's like, oh, I like the cut of this guy's jib.
They vote. The way they vote in Canada is the same way a guy picks a hooker in Las Vegas, looking at a picture.
Yeah. We just drive slowly downtown between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. and that's how we vote. Yeah. So
you have to be now, Jason. To be honest with you have to be embarrassed for your country, right? The way that was handled, or I mean.
The thing to me is, yeah, thank you. I'm not standing up.
Stand up.
We don't have to stand up for ours.
Yeah, they're so liberal.
We just say we'll stand on guard for thee. We don't actually stand up.
I'm going to kneel while I sing that.
To me, the thing that kind of underlined all of it was how quickly the story goes away when something real in the world happens.
Yeah,
in the Ukraine. My mom's Ukrainian. Like,
way to deflect. You sound like a politician.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Two generations away from the Ukraine on my mom's side. And so that story, I mean, we must have some extended family up there, but it just resonates really oddly that so much of life gets caught up in like these little, well, not super little, but in these little ideological differences when there's some genuinely disturbing things that go on in this world.
Well, I'll make a comparison between the two. Obviously, in Ukraine, like the reason what was horrible about what I saw in Canada was people's rights just being taken away, and their money and the confiscation of assets and whatever. That was pretty, and that's something that would make you grab a Molotov cocktail and throw it in somebody's window. But yes, Ukraine is a much worrying about a missile flying through your front window is a bit more concerning than can I drink Pepsi or Coke tomorrow?
Right.
Drinking Pepsi or Coke is huge, though, to me.
We're on the other side of. We're on different sides of the equation for that. He's a Pepsi dude, and I'm a Coca-Cola product guy.
You're an asshole.
Yeah. It almost brought the festival down.
And let me, just that break, just that difference, like less filling, tastes great. You got, your Pepsi, Coke. There was actually one. Wasn't there a really good commercial? One of the Super Bowl commercials where they were fighting each other or chasing each other in the trucks or something. But that was that. But I digress. Let's move off the world topics for now.
Wasn't you in that commercial?
What's that?
Wasn't you in one of those commercials?
No, I was in a Fox Bet commercial. Where I was a crazy Kansas City fan.
You were throwing in a sneaky little plug for yourself.
If I was plugging somebody, we just saw the video pop up. We just saw a video of it pop up. Yeah. Anyway, let's get back. So the World Series of Comedy, I mentioned it. I was talking about it last night at an open mic here in Greenville at the Coffee Underground, which is every Monday. A few people excited about it. There's a gentleman named David Zasloff, who I've started using as my opening act, who I told him he's got to get in there. He's been doing comedy for years. And the idea, now let's cover this. Like somebody says, okay, how does it work? So here's one of the things I love about it is the satellites. The satellites are at various comedy clubs around the country, which to me is a great invitation to getting in front of a comedy club owner instead of trying to send them emails all the time, right? This is your way to get in front of them and showcase for them. Right. I mean, isn't this the basic?
That's the whole purpose. That's really the purpose we put it. I mean, we did that. We put it together for that reason, but we also wanted to be able to reach more comics to let them know how big the main event is and why they should come to that. So
the entire festival was
it
was put together because there's an underserviced and underrepresented faction of comedians who just don't have the time to go out on the road and can't afford it. And so we almost travel to them and create kind of like these de facto showcase events so that they can get the opportunity to perform sometimes in front of their local club that they might not even be able to get up into. So the way that the festival works is that you submit a video. We have 5 independent judges score it. Everyone gets ranked. Then you opt into these events you'd like to participate in. The top 40 get invited to participate, and then we run a week-long contest. And so there is the contest element, but probably the 2 or 3 most important parts of the festival are using it as a de facto showcase at that particular location to potentially get paid work, whether you win the contest that week or not. But to Joe and I think the biggest sort of influence we've seen from these satellite events is just how having 40 comedians come into the community and just talk about comedy and network and get to know each other. And they might end up doing independent shows together, having never known each other the week before. And so kind of like we've fostered a bit of a community with the World Series of Comedy. Like you could go to a town and probably find someone that you've met either at a satellite event or the main event, and they could vouch for you for a showcase at their club, or a couch to surf on, or might put together a show for them, do a little road run. So I think the community of the World Series of Comedy is something that probably surprised Joe and I the most in terms of how everyone gets along and kind of uses it as a networking event all year long.
Yeah, I always felt the main event was like a summer camp for comedy. It's like, let's all hang out for a week.
Yeah, if you're going to register for the festival and you're not going to try to come to the main event, you probably shouldn't register unless you are, say, I want to come to a certain satellite, and that's the sole reason you're doing it. Then it's worth it for that reason too. But I mean, every comic should plan and try to come to the main event. It's just a fun week. 150, 200 comics running around, seminars. This past year we had Amazing Jonathan, which I think was his last ever live performance, and he showed up to do a seminar, and it was more of a comedy show that he did in front of a bunch of comics.
Let me add to that, because when you talk about the importance of networking, like you can't like if you win, you get so much work, so you can almost quantify in a sense. But to quantify something like networking, I got to sit at the diner with Amazing John and Jeff Shaw and Randy Lubis, and for like an hour and a half, just bullshit, hearing stories, and I was just sitting there,
Yeah.
And why? Because I was there.
Correct. You just
I was
tag along. They didn't want you there, but you just went anyways.
Yeah, it's, a dick. But what I'm saying. You know what I mean? But yeah, because God, that's something that wouldn't have happened if I didn't attend on the networking aspect of it. But yeah, the seminars, as for that, and I'm going to say this and continue talking about the seminars. But the first World Series of Comedy I went to either was in Chicago or was in San Antonio. I can't remember one of those things. No, it was in Goodnights, Charlie Goodnights in Raleigh. Yeah. But I think the first thing I learned from there is I was leaving my comedy scene in Florida, and I was seeing comics from all around the country. And that was an eye-opening moment, because you're like, wow, I got a lot to learn. And I got, there's so many things I didn't even know, watching this different level of just different comics that you haven't seen, but that part was great, a learning experience.
I keep busting your balls, but yeah, man, I watched you grow, and I've watched you grow so much over the years. And you have taken this festival and used it the way it should be used. I mean, you work your ass off when you're there. You network, you talk, you know people. You watch the show, you figure out what you did good, what you did wrong. You listen to what we say. Sometimes you don't give a shit what we say, and sometimes you do. Sometimes you have to think about what we said and think about it, and the next day, and you're like, yeah, all right, that was probably correct. But
yeah, I'm still a little upset about the judge. I'm still a little upset about the results in Boston. I really thought I advanced that show, but other than that, yeah, you're right. So,
well, one of the big things is that a lot of people do focus on winning, especially at the main event. But if you think about it, like just from a math and statistics point of view, only one person can win. But anyone who shows up can take the time and get paid work, which is the real goal of the festival. And so we bring in 30 or 40 industry insiders, whether that's comedy club owners, agents, managers, bookers, and you get FaceTime with them for a whole week at the main event. If you don't qualify for the top 101, Joe and I have gone out of our way to create additional showcase shows so that any comedian who's paid the registration fee for the main event gets stage time, so they have the exact same opportunity as anyone else participating in the contest portion to get seen and potentially network, showcase, and get paid work. And so we did 3 shows last year because so many people showed up. And I know for a fact that 15 to 20 of those comedians on those shows ended up with paid work. And those shows, I was about to say, the shows were so great, and they got a great video that most of the people on those shows used the video from that show as their submission for this year. And that's one of the weird things about the World Series of Comedy is that people come back. It's not a one and done thing. And that's sort of where the community has fostered, is that people are willing to come back and participate again because they see the value in the networking and the friendships and the community that we built.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe was talking about the seminars and what's goes on all week, and there's a lot there. I mean, now that I'm a new member of the comedy scene here in Greenville, there's a lot of newer comics new to the game, and we're gonna have me and Brandon Rainwater, hello comic, very funny comic, are gonna be doing what's that?
I think he just registered.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon opens for Ginger Billy. He's been blowing up, but we're gonna do like a little seminar type thing before the open mics on Thursday they have here at the Comedy Zone in Greenville.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and the idea and some of the things I want to talk to you guys today about, like some of the funniest audition videos or submission videos you guys have fucking seen. I mean, we got to talk about some of this stuff obviously here on the Wake and Play with Dougie show, but where do you? I mean, I'm looking forward. I guess I'm attempting, and we're talking about me doing a financial seminar, which I've got notes here. I'm going to talk about and things like that. But there's everything. I mean, how do you get booked? I mean, it's amazing how much that somebody doesn't know that wants to be in comedy. And then you sit there one day and you're like, oh, that's how I send an email. Oh, that's what I shouldn't say when I'm at the club. Oh, this is what I should never do.
I still walk through while the seminars are going on, or if I have a chance, I'm in there for them. And every year, I'm like, oh man, I got to work harder. Like I learned something. I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was doing that wrong, or sometimes
the topics we choose
something right. You're like, oh, okay, these guys are saying this is how you do it. That's how I'm doing it. Cool. It's validation.
Yeah, the topics we choose are basically Joe and I sit down and Joe goes, okay, what's everything I did wrong during the developmental stage of my comedy career? Let's do a seminar on everything I screwed up.
Well, that's
usually a good thing to do.
Almost everything, every time, every role that we have in the festival was the stuff that I screwed up and did wrong. I ran the red light. I, thought I was great. I was cocky. It was stupid. And then you don't get work and you end up screwing yourself in the, and so I started this festival hoping that maybe some comics won't make the same mistakes.
And we also try to give comedians access to stuff they don't have access to. So we do usually 1, maybe even 2 direct Q&As with bookers and club owners. So they can ask the questions they never get the opportunity to. Because a lot of comedians are like, oh, I don't get booked there because that person doesn't like me. It's like, well, let's tear down that wall and you can ask the owner of Laugh Boston directly.
Yeah, they don't even know you.
How many comics do you think are like that? Like that psychotic? Like I think there's like I've gotten to the point I think there's like a conspiracy to blacklist me. You know what I mean? You've got.
Yeah, it's easy to start to feel that way, but I don't think it's as deep as it can be. And I'm not going to say that there's not some clubs. I get emails all the time. I just got an email from a comic in the Ohio area, and he's like, "I'm not going to do your festival, it's a scam or it's fixed or something." So I don't get mad when I get those. I send him back an email and I said, can you explain? Here's my phone number. I really would like to talk to you. So I got him on the phone and we had a great conversation, and he is having an issue with one of the clubs, and he just assumed that club, he's like, the club won't pick me to get in. I go, the club has no choice. They don't pick.
Yeah.
They don't get to pick. And I said, so if you submit and you get in, you're performing. And there was a comic in Florida last year who insisted that he was blackballed from McCurdy's. And I insisted that they don't know who he is, and that I would gladly call the club and ask them if they know who he is and if there's a problem. And he's like, no, you don't need to do that. I'm not allowed to get in. And I said, but you're in and you can perform. You're scheduled to perform. And he's like, okay. And then right before the satellite, he sent an email and said, I can't come. They're not going to let me.
Oh, so he still didn't come?
There was nothing said to me that he couldn't come. There was nothing. So he blackballed himself again. And then sometimes I think comics do some of this stuff just so they can have an excuse why they're not getting the work. Instead of putting the work in to become better and work harder and become funnier, it's easier to say they don't want me because of this other problem.
Yeah.
Than you put the work in. If you put the work in and you're funny, the clubs can forget about any kind of problems really fast.
Yeah, one of the local headliners when I ran the club in Vancouver was the biggest douchebag, but man, was he funny. He still got stage time.
Yeah. And in the corporate world, there's something called sales cover a multiple of sins. If you're bringing in the revenue, you don't necessarily have to be there at 7 a.m. for the conference call.
Now, all that being said, every club would rather work with somebody who's fun and cool and is not an asshole. So that's the first thing you should do with yourself as a comic, is try not to be an asshole. And I think this festival actually weeds out most of them. Any comics who don't want to follow rules and want to be jerks and show up late and bitch about things, they don't do this festival because there's too many rules, and I'm pretty strict on the rules. The comics that do it get it and want to be part of it and want to learn, and that's why I think we have a great community of comics. And comics enjoy.
And
let me address
the rules are pretty strict. Like You have to show up 35 minutes prior to showtime. We do a pre-show meeting. We go over all the rules on the stage time, point out where the light is. And all those rules are in place to duplicate what would happen in a real life situation if you're doing feature work at a club. And so it's not us being like really pedantic. It's us trying to, through osmosis, show you how you should be behaving once you get the paid work.
We don't use big words like that here. Not on Wake Up Dougie. Yeah.
Just looking for
He uses
subtitles.
you, Sherry. Oh, there. This guy.
Yeah. That's funny, fiduciary. In regards to that, into the judging and some of the things of people saying things are fixed and stuff, I think that especially on the main event scale, the good thing is that there are so many judges. There's maybe countless judges, and they're usually industry or club owners. So that's the exposure aspect's great when you got, Cindy from Brad Garrett's room. You got everybody, Comedy Cabana. You got, everybody's there. So yeah, what good thing is some judges like a certain comic. Some other judges may do that. So the more that goes into the number sequence, the better the ratings are. I've said to some people, I said, now some of the local shows, like if I'm a guy coming from Florida to Chicago, or bought wherever, and I'm dealing with 80% of the local comics at that satellite, there's a good chance that the club owner is going to put a little more favoritism, to their hometown crowd. But that's home field advantage. So, like we were talking about, funny's funny. So if you go in and kick ass, and
I could,
yeah.
If we notice that a club owner gives locals too much of an advantage, we pull their score. If their scores aren't consistent throughout the whole show, I don't care if they're the owner of the club. I've pulled their score from the deciding factor. And I tell the club owners that ahead of time too. So I say, if you really want to help your guy get through, don't try to tank the others, or your score's not going to get counted at all. There's also, to be fair, the majority of the satellites, none of them are full of locals. The majority, like they don't. When we do Florida, or when we do the Punchline in Atlanta, there'll maybe be 6 out of the 40 that are from Atlanta, because a lot of the comics haven't heard about it yet, or they just haven't registered, or they just didn't make it in because there's talented guys coming in from all over the country that get in. So we're really strict on the judges. I used to have a rule where if a judge got up to go to the bathroom, the host would hold the show and wait for them to come back till the comics were there. Now I just let them go, and I have somebody tell me, and I just pull their score. So I've pulled scores at the main event, and it doesn't happen as much at the satellites because it's just mostly Jason and I and one of the club owners, so we know not to leave. But the main event, I've walked out and saw one of the judges in the hallway, and I went in and said, okay, I used to fight with him, going, you got to get in there. Now, do whatever you want. I have enough judges.
Yeah, that's
go in the hallway, talk to somebody.
Well, we're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of comedians that register a year. And so maintaining the integrity of the actual function of the contest is really important, or else people wouldn't come back, or it would ruin our brand. And so also when the judges are at the main event, they understand that too. We might not invite them back if they aren't judging fair. So their opportunity to come out and network, it's as beneficial as it is for the comedians to be seen by the judges and the club owners and the bookers. We're providing a really good service for the bookers and the club owners too. They get to see 150 comics in 7 days. That would take them 3 years of showcasing at a club, of someone coming through once a week on their Wednesday night show to showcase. So they like the opportunity that is presented to them as well. And so they don't want to jeopardize it. We had one pretty bad judging issue at El Cortez in 2017, where a talent agent was one of the judges. And you could see on the scores, the 2 people they represented got massive scores, and the other people got very average scores. And so I very discreetly walked up to him and I said, we're not going to be counting your scores today. Please don't judge like that in the future, or else you won't be judging again. and that person hasn't come back to a World Series of Comedy event since then, because I think that they feel like they kind of got caught, you know?
Yeah, a little embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yeah,
It's not hard to catch somebody. We see all the scores.
Yeah.
8-8,
yeah.
30.
And that's why I think that, to that, I remember it was a while ago, somebody posted something, one of the posts that they kind of badmouthed it, and I kind of spoke up to them and said something on the post. You guys remember that? And I said it's fair, I mean, it's fair as something as subjective as a comedy contest could fucking be.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean? It's not the easiest thing to judge. And then, it's like a boxing, I'm a fighter. So when even as a judge, people that need to realize when you're watching a boxing match, or, there's usually 3 or 4 judges, and they're sitting in 3 different spots around the ring. So if somebody's got their back turned to them, they may not see that punch a certain way versus the judge in the other corner of the ring. So it's all by perspective, but all put all that shit aside. And you're right. These are barriers that some people put in their way at a fear of success that, hey, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to deal with all that. And my goal is to go in there and crush and be funny as hell for that 7 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever I'm doing. And then be undeniable. That's it. And if I walk out of a room that just got done crying and pissing their pants and I don't get through, I'm going to look at all the judges and go, whatever, I did what I was supposed to do. And and otherwise, let me ask you guys this. Do you see with that aspect of comedy clubs, do you see comedy clubs asking or looking for new talent? Do you see that? Is that something a comic today can kind of wish for or hope for?
Well, you work for Looney Bins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
which, by the way, I just got bumped to headline. I got bumped to headline.
Okay. And Jeff's great, and he does a wonderful job. But he was kind of booking the same guys over and over again for a lot of years. And he let me know the one time, he's like, "Oh, I love the World Series. I've found a bunch of new talent that I didn't have." So yeah, I think they're out there looking, and it's easy for a club owner to kind of stick with the comics that they have and know that they're not going to give them a headache, they're not going to be a problem, and just book them and go through the thing. And sometimes it's hard to push a club to want to switch it up because they don't know if they're going to get a good comic or somebody who's going to be on time and stuff like that. And I think we have a pretty good reputation now throughout our 12 year, I think this is our 13th year, that the comics go through a pretty hard gauntlet of stuff to make it to the end. So when somebody comes there because they
nice use of gauntlet, by the way.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I was hoping. I mean, I threw it in, and I'm like, man, if they don't comment and acknowledge that I used gauntlet, there,
he was just playing a video game. That's why he knows gauntlet.
Yeah.
Fucking playing.
He just likes throwing. He just likes throwing.
I'm playing no video games. I would never get any work done. I'm so addicted. I'd be so addicted.
As a former club manager, I think I can speak to that as well, as especially the feature position, because quite often it doesn't include travel and accommodations unless the club happens to own a condo or something like that where there's inherent accommodations available. But most comedy clubs are sort of stuck with locals as features, which leads to something I would call audience fatigue. So a regular customer who comes to the club maybe once a month or once every 2 weeks or something like that would start seeing the same faces over and over. And as you guys know, the goal of comedy is to make it look spontaneous. But the reality of comedy is that that's a prepared material that takes months and years to craft, and your set will evolve over time. But if you see someone 3 times over the course of 2 months, you're probably seeing 90% of the same stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so as a former club manager, having the opportunity to be exposed to new and different performers at the feature spot, I think is one of the real benefits that the World Series can bring to the club environment. And also, as you were alluding to earlier, have this ray of hope for comics that there is the opportunity to go into new marketplaces and perform.
Because as a comic, go ahead, Joe.
I think as the World Series too, we have also helped educate some of the club owners in the industry. Now, a lot of them know what they're doing and they do a great job and stuff like that. But sometimes they don't realize that comics are willing to drive halfway across the country for a shitty pay and a gig. They think, oh, why would, because they wouldn't do it. they're not a comic. Probably 2 or 3 years ago, I saw a Facebook post from a booker in Iowa, said he needed somebody. So I sent him a message because I had a cell phone. So I texted him and I said, I can get you a comic. I know a couple guys that would come down. They've already let me know that they would travel. There's one guy that I can think of that was looking for some work from New York. And he goes, why would he come all the way here? And I go, don't worry about that. That's not your worry.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay. And I sent out a message to 6 or 7 comics. Neil Rubenstein responded, drove from New York to Iowa for $100 or something like that. He jumped on and I think he picked up a couple other gigs along the way or did something.
Yeah.
Another comic went with him, got to do a guest spot, so share the ride. So sometimes I'm always talking with the bookers and saying, don't, even if I talk to a club and they're like, well, I can't offer work because I don't have a hotel room or I don't offer this. I go, don't worry about that. You don't know if somebody has family in that town. They may want to just drive through.
If it pays a certain amount, put it out there. I mean, I spent many years featuring.
They want it.
Yeah, I mean, I spent many years featuring at break even because it wasn't about the money; it was about the experience and yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But and it is a challenge as a comic because right now, because like Jason said, there's a lot of comedy clubs because of COVID and the trying to save money here and there that are using local features, so they don't have a hotel cost and everything. So I know as a touring feature, my work is kind of slowed in that sense because everybody, and not only that, there's a lot of clubs that they're just booking on their own, or they used to use agencies. They don't use agencies, so it's interesting an event. So if you are a comic looking for work, I can assure you that one of the things is to saddle up and join in. And submit to the World Series of Comedy. Absolutely. Submission videos. One of the funniest things at a seminar one time is you guys share stories about, submission videos or emails. Like the guy who says, I went on your website and you have comics on there that suck, and tell the club owner that in email.
Throwing shade.
Yeah. We had there was a guy that was at the cell. We had a video seminar that year, and I remember him being in the front row, and we talked about how we need to see you in front of an audience in a club or one night or some way we can judge everything. And the next year he sent a video from a cup holder while he was driving the truck. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? And then one year the guy sent a video from his kitchen, and then he didn't make it in. And he's like, why didn't I make it in? And so I responded to his email saying, we kind of need to see you in a club or, that kind of atmosphere so we can help you out. And he's like, can I send one from my living room? He wasn't kidding. And I said, that's probably not going to be good enough. And he did. Yeah. And he got in. It was incredible. No.
Yeah.
No, and one. And that person was.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I don't know how he fit 150 people in his living room, but he did.
I had that happen with Tavolino's. Okay, I want to work at Tavolino's. I'm like, well, do you have a video? He's like, I'm going to do a show. I'm going to record there. But he ended up sending me one, like doing it from in front of his closet in his room. Just telling jokes. And I was like, dude. Yeah. And what I did was
he pulled the shower curtain back.
Exactly. We didn't even get creative. I mean. At least put the goldfish there and stuff, so it looks like you have an audience. But yeah, and the guy did that, and so what I did was I sent him like, well, I'm going to send you 3 videos of people that want to work what they sent me, and I'd sent them the links. And I said, you tell me who you'd fucking hire to do a show.
Oh man!
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We give like one year a comic registered. And no matter, we score them, rank them. He was last out of everybody. The next year he registered, sent the same video. He was last. I said to my wife, I go, if he registers this year, I'm sending his money back. And she's like, why? And I go, he isn't trying to get anything at all out of this festival. We not everybody can get in. There's only so many spots, but we still try to give something back. We offer notes on your video submission, and then you can resubmit another video if that video didn't work, to try to help increase your score. He never asked for anything. All he was doing was sending money in the same video, and I'm like, that's not what this festival's about. It's about trying to help comics and make them better. And so he never registered again. I think he just...
Comedians really don't understand how important the technical aspect of their video is. Just like you were talking about earlier, Dougie, if a judge at a boxing match can't see someone land the jab, you're not going to give them the point. Same thing with stand-up comedy. If you're filming from like the corner of the room at 90 degrees and you're expecting the viewer to understand your little act out that they can't see, you're not adding any to your performance. So we tell people in frame.
It's so hard now to get a tripod. Yeah, but all that's hard, Jason, in today's day and age, to have a good camera with a tripod.
Spend $9 on a tripod on Amazon, to put it up in the middle of the room, to zoom in on your phone that you have anyways, to film in landscape and not portrait.
It's so much, Jason, it's so much more fun to watch when your girlfriend's holding your phone long, vertical, and
saying all the punchlines before they
making it while you're beside it.
I love the running commentary because it makes me understand the comedy more.
Yeah,
this joke's good.
I love when they take a good 30 seconds to a minute to start doing their show. That's just incredible.
Include another performer.
Video. You're going to submit a video. You should definitely waste 1 minute of my time before I start watching it. And the ideal situation would be is if you would put someone else on before. We had a video once where I click on it and the guy in the front, like on stage, is saying, well, fuck you, you piece of shit, saying all kind of racist stuff, like right off the bat. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell? Like, and then he goes, oh, let's keep this show rolling. I'd like to bring up your friend. And I'm like, what? That's not even the guy we're supposed to be watching? That if he sent that video to a booker, they shut it off instantly and never hire him. And then he's like, oh, they're blackballing me. They don't like me. It's because you didn't edit some jerk at the beginning of the video out of your video.
And these are, you would think these things are simple, but even I'm in my 15th year, but it wasn't until 2 or 3 years ago from the festival, we're talking about this stuff that, you learn, hey, if you're going to send in a submission video or even a link to a comedy club to hire you, don't put the whole stupid introduction in there. Just start from your first joke. There's no reason.
When you send your link, send any link. Don't check it and make sure it works. Just any link you want. There's no reason for you to check it. I don't understand why you would need to check that link. That's not important. Just send the link.
People have sent time-coded links where it launches at 9 minutes into a 45-minute set when we've asked for 5. A good trick, though, for your submission video is try and film a set where you have your closer in your first minute or two. Now, you wouldn't want to do that in a live showcase, but in a video, you would want that because you want to capture the attention as quickly as you can and get the viewer to continue watching. Bookers are incredibly busy people. They're often also the showroom manager at a club. And so the amount of time that they have to dedicate towards watching videos during their work week, it's probably maybe 2 hours a week out of their 40 to 60 hour work week. And they probably have 500 emails in their inbox of people asking them to watch videos. So if you're not capturing their attention in the first 30, 45, or 60 seconds, they may not continue to watch the entire video. At the World Series of Comedy, we promise to watch the first 5 minutes in full, regardless of content. But in the real life situation of you trying to get your showcase viewed, try and get as many quick hits up top. And if that means you have to do your closer first, do your closer first, because then you're guaranteeing that they're going to see your closer. If you keep your closer till the 5 or 7 minute mark, they might not watch that long.
Yeah, they might only watch a minute. of your video. And I know when we're watching all these videos, if somebody makes me laugh in the first 30 seconds, 45 seconds, I'm more into watching that video.
Yeah.
I've accidentally watched 9 minutes before of someone.
I was just
I'm
going
like,
to say
oh,
the
damn
same
it.
thing.
They got me.
Yeah, we're watching 500-600 videos a year, so every minute counts. And there's been times I've watched like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and I'm like, but I was like, oh, this was good. I didn't even realize I was 7 minutes in. Yeah, that's funny.
Have you
It's
guys?
funny.
Have
Joe
you guys
and I
ever?
will text each other and we're like, this person has a really good shot of winning a satellite. Never heard of them before. It's like, have you seen the video from so-and-so? And so we're just comedy fans. Like at the end of the day, Joe and I are just massive comedy fans. Joe's been a headliner for 25 years, touring across the country. I used to run a comedy club. And we just want to see people do well in the industry, you know?
Yeah.
And so the entire festival is kind of geared towards giving people opportunities.
Well, I have benefited from the opportunities, and I'm going to be back this year. I made it. What is it? The quarters last year, the semis, and
Top 14.
yeah,
Top 14.
top 6 in 2015, and,
so you're going down.
I know I'm like a stock. I'm trading in a range.
We would have sold. We should have sold you in 214.
Yeah, you should have just dumped me. Move me on. Exactly. Other little things like you get your headshots. I mean, my headshots I've used to this moment are taken at the World Series of Comedy main event, and it's a lot of fun. Now, what's the ugliest thing anything ever happened after a satellite or somebody wasn't happy with the ever have somebody get physical when they weren't happy with the results?
Years ago at Good Nights, we had a comic who had just moved to that town in North Carolina, and then he registered at the last minute, and I told him registration for that satellite was closed, but he could come to other satellites if he could get in. And he showed up and started fighting with Brad Reeder, the owner, who used to work with me a lot with the festival, and is a very good friend of mine. And Brad was like, this is not going to help you get into my club afterwards. Probably, there's really not a lot. I mean, I think what I love about the comics in the festival is most of them watch the show and they go, yeah, that guy was funnier than me tonight. That comic was funnier. Doesn't mean that comic's always funnier. It's just that night they were. And most of the time they're accepting. And sometimes we've had some people question or get mad, but usually we try to, we talk to them and talk them off the ledge and explain why it went the way it went.
We tend to go out for dinner after every show. And so that's an amazing opportunity to just talk through what happened, get some peer review, get some review from Joe and myself and our hosts. And then people kind of clue into oh, I can understand the reasoning behind the choice at this point. That person had maybe stronger stage presence or used some different techniques on stage from a writing perspective that may have just slightly elevated them over my performance tonight. Plus also Joe and I are super transparent when it comes to this festival. So if anyone ever has any issues with the festival, everyone has our phone number. Everyone has our email address. We're not trying to hide anything. The entire history of the festival is on our website. So you can find out anyone who's finished top 3 in any of our satellite events over the course of the last 13 years on our website. We're not sweeping anything under the rug. Anytime a club owner has a question for us, we answer it. Anytime a performer has a question for us, we answer it. If there's someone thinking about registering and hasn't decided to, it's call us. We'll tell you what we think the festival is about, and we'll give you references to people who have participated, like yourself. Ask them. They'll tell you the true answer. So I think we have enough things in place to de-escalate those issues, so they don't tend to pop up.
If you come to one of the satellites, though, and you bring your significant other, and they don't agree with the scoring or the judging, but we still invite them out to come to dinner with us, make sure you keep them in check. Because they didn't register the festival, and we don't want to hear them screaming or yelling at us amongst all.
That's the only time I've been upset in my 5 years with the festival.
I mean, it's keep your keep the people that come. We understand that you're excited for your person, but sometimes the audience, like I've had audiences members get mad at us, like, why didn't that person move on? He got the most laughs, and I go, yeah, but they did stock jokes, or they did kind of hacky material,
or the ran short,
or they don't know all the aspects of it, and so to me it's kind of the comics' job to explain to their people, I screwed up, or this is why I did.
I think the only thing that could happen sometimes, relatively frequently, is people missing the light. But then, just like the other rules that are in place with this festival, it's meant to mirror the circumstances that would happen at a club if you were booked there as a feature. And your time is your responsibility. The light is a courtesy. For a number of years, I ran the light myself. I missed it once in one show because a comedian was making me laugh so hard. I was 30 seconds late lighting him. And it was at the Looney Bin.
Every show saying you didn't light him.
Yeah.
What's that?
I didn't see it.
Every show, Jason, there's a comic saying you didn't light him.
Yeah.
No, I've never run the light. I don't. Yeah, that would be funny though. I could see some. I've been out when it was like, how much time is this person doing? You know, and that happens. Like,
that was me years ago.
Famously,
exactly.
At the club I used to run, Dane Cook showed up at the height of his popularity. And it was before I was the general manager there. It was the previous general manager. And it played a heavy part into me becoming the general manager, is that you're getting this person who's charging $100,000 for theater shows walk into your club. First, they lit him. Then they cut the mic. Then they turned the house lights up. And when that filtered back to the owner of the club, was like, you did what? When this guy walked off the street and provided this Tuesday night crowd with a $100 show for free. And so then it was like, wanted comedy club manager. And so that's how I got the job.
There you go. Well, since we're talking about that, I think it's funny to think about slip ups. You know what I mean? It's like people just making those mistakes. You know, I was having a conversation with some younger comics, other comics, that there's certain things that unless, like, okay, if somebody runs a light, that's generally because they're not professional. Like, they're not used to working, and they're not used to, you know, because one of the hardest challenges for a comic who has more time is cultivating your 7-minute set for the contest. So that's your first challenge. It's not like, hey, I'm you know, I got to figure out what I'm going to put into that 7 minutes, right? So that's the first challenge, and you got to do it. You have to have that time, you know. And then what are you grabbing, a Fresca? What are you doing there, Jason? You getting a Molson? What are you drinking, Molson? He's Coca-Cola. Yeah, it's product placement.
It's supposed to be a product placement, then it's sprayed all over me.
Hey,
I'm not going to get my sponsorship money.
Oh shit, I forgot what I was talking about. At any rate,
comics making mistakes. Slip up.
Yeah, all kinds of mistakes. So, like running the light, you know, we always know that's a no-no when you're running a light. But and then like at open mics, like, you know, as a comic, I'm a working comic, so if I go to an open mic, you know, whether I'm on the list or not, you know, like one of the nice things here at the Comedy Zone, if I don't sign up, they have a nice system on Sundays. You got to go online and sign up if you want to be on the weekly. And by the way, our open mic here at Greenville Comedy Zone is awesome because there's usually 20 to 30 people there, which most open mics around the country, you have 10 or 20 comics sitting around at it. But yeah, it's fun for that, and people for the most part stick around for the 20 comics that go up. But you know, there's an understanding that if a professional local comic is in the audience, you know, is there, that they're going to get on stage, you know,
right?
And they should. And some other comics get miffed by that. You know, like, oh, why is that person?
They should be watching you and learning.
Yeah,
you should be honored anytime a professional goes up, and even if they take your spot, you should be honored to watch them and learn and grow and go, how can I get to that point?
Yeah, I was always shocked when I was a comedy club manager if we would have like we used to set up our pro-am night with a local headliner as the MC and a local headliner closing, because we wanted to at least ensure the audience got at least two very strong performers during the show. And then it was a booked mic basically. And I was always shocked at the people who were part of the amateur portion of the show not sticking around in the green room till the end of the show. It's like you have access, like for many of the comedians in the open mic scene, that was like their Super Bowl. Oh, I got to perform at the Comedy Mix, you know. Oh, I got to be on a show with Graham Clark or, you know, Chad Daniels or whomever. It's like, why aren't you staying until the end of the show and picking this person's brain in the green room and taking this moment when for 90 minutes you're their peer to get as much feedback and insight into the industry as possible? The people who would like show up, do their set and leave, I was like, wow, the likelihood of you dedicating the time and effort needed to advance in comedy is shown in that microcosm that you're probably not at the point in your life where that's where you're going to dedicate your time and effort.
Well, there's a distinguishable difference between real comics and hobbyists. You know,
Yep.
A lot of comedy scenes have folks that are showing up at the open mics and doing the same 6 minutes over and over again for years.
The television show Crashing is an amazing example. That season 1 of Pete Holmes' show is like, he calls himself a comic from like the introduction of the pilot episode. And then you find out that he's driving in from Connecticut to New York to do 3 minutes a week. But he calls himself a comic and he's been doing it for 7 years. And then he has this light bulb moment where he's like, if I want to really be a comedian, I need to invest myself and engross myself in this industry. And so the show for the 3 seasons is kind of like that journey. But there's a lot of different influences and different art forms that comedians can bring to comedy, like the writings of Shakespeare and Twain for like brevity and how to use word economy and edit your setups. So you don't necessarily have to be purely influenced by other comedians, but like you said, there's a massive gap between those who are in comedy just so they can call themselves comedian and those who want to make comedy their livelihood.
Yeah, I just call myself a comic.
Yeah.
Joe the comic Lowers.
Joe the comic Lowers.
Some of the funny stuff with is people's names. Oh my goodness. The names are great. The stage names are fantastic.
Well, if
putting
you
in
put
time
the word
and
comic,
effort into marketing before you even have an act.
But if you put the word comic or comedian in your stage name, then obviously you're the best one. There's no one.
Yeah.
I mean, that screams to everybody, hire this guy.
Or some kind of natural disaster. That's always a good stage name too.
Yeah.
Cyclone.
Stage names. That's awesome.
Anything like comedian or stuff like that and your name and send out a video, you are already in the hole with the booker, anyone watching it, and you better be super funny so we forget that you put the word comedian in your name.
Yeah.
It's just, don't do it. Just use your name.
Be honest. I remember you guys. I remember you guys telling the story about how one comic advanced and they didn't have the time, so they did their set twice.
Yeah, that happened one time. That was at the Comedy Spot in 2011. That was the first year we did satellites, and this kid had an incredible 7, had a really good 11, and then 11 minutes, and then when he made it to do the 25. And I know for a fact, Jason and I both have found this out sometimes, usually after, where comics have told us, oh man, this was our first time ever getting to do 25. And we're like, oh, cool. When we feel honored with that, we always are really excited that we were able to offer a comic their first chance to do 25 minutes. And this was his first time. Most of the time, the comics are prepared. They have 25 minutes of material. They just haven't got a chance to perform it all at one time.
Right.
This dude stretches his 11 to about 17 and then just started over. It was so funny. I mean, everyone was laughing. I was dying laughing. And then I go up to give the trophies out. I walk on stage and I go, and you're third place. And he steps forward and just takes it out of my hand. And I go, thank you. You made it easy.
That also brings up an interesting topic regarding like how are you going to set up the showcase that you're going to perform. We've had some performers who don't advance from either round 2 to the semis or from the wild card to round 2. And we've seen material on their video that got them into the contest in the first place that they didn't perform. And we've talked to them at dinner afterwards and like, why didn't you tell the joke about the duck? It's like, oh, I was saving it. It's like, whoa, in a contest, no bullets in the clip. You don't save any bullets in the clip. In our specific contest,
save the good stuff for the show you're not on.
Tell it in your hotel room later on. The thing that our contest does is it duplicates what happens at a comedy club. Like Joe alluded to, there's a round where we do 5 minutes, a round where we do 7, one where we do 11. So those are kind of like showcase length times. And then if you make it all the way to the finals, whether it's of the main event or one of our satellites, you do 25, which is what a feature would be expected to do. Now, if you advance throughout the week, whether at the main event or at a satellite, a lot of comedians will ask us, should I do the same material again? And the answer is yes, absolutely you should. Because comedy club owners and comedy club bookers want to see that same material resonate well in front of multiple crowds. Because if you get paid work, you're going to be saying the same material in front of a Thursday night comedy nerd crowd, a Friday night late show rowdy crowd, the Saturday beach crowd that comes in for the 7 o'clock show. So it needs to work in front of multiple audiences. So also inherently, your best 7 minutes is still your best 7 minutes. So if you do 2 separate 7-minute sets, you're cheating the audience out of your best 7 minutes in one of those 2 sets. So repeating material is absolutely fine and actually encouraged in our festival.
I had a booker once ask me, they're like, why don't you make the comics do different material every show? And I said, because you're not a comic. Like they're like, I go, comics work their ass off to get the 7 that they have, and then you want me to just have them do new? I go, that's not how it works. And that booker was like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. And I go, yeah, no,
I had that. Yeah, of course, just Joe Lowers. I had that issue, and I had that issue recently because, I advanced, and someone said you're going to do the same material the next show, because sometimes you think, okay, if the person wants to book me, they want to know if I have more material, right? But and you get it as a comedy club, and then what happened is in these semifinals, I guess I was in the 4 o'clock show, and we had like 10 people. It was a lighter crowd and a lot of comics, and
whatever. One fucking bad show. That's the one you got to talk about.
Well, listen. I'm telling you, I was in the semis or in the semifinals. I was there. It was light, and I was actually. I'm talking as a comic as we make decisions. I was like, well, I know that person sitting in the back room. Am I going to do the different 7 minutes I was planning on doing? Or am I going to go ahead and be a comic and say, I got to really do what I need to do to get this crowd going? I'm up against the wall here. And I decided to kind of do a little both. I did some new jokes, but I pretty much stuck to my core stuff and ultimately did not advance. But, the craziness of the contest, like, it's pros and cons. Sometimes you have comedy festivals that are just showcases. There's no pressure of a contest. You're just going out and performing in different shows, and that's a bit more relaxing. Then you hope you make the best of the fest or whatever it is at the end. But the contest is good because sometimes in life, that's what it is. When you're a working comic, sometimes you have to make decisions. Sometimes you have to, think on your feet. I got booked. I was asked to work a weekend at a really nice club the weekend of the main event, and I called Joe. I said, "What should I do? I mean, I want to be there. If I get in and all that stuff, I want to be there, but I don't want to, tell this person I don't want the work either." So sometimes you have to make decisions. Do I do the same material? Do I change it up?
One of the things that Joe and I talk about is we almost have like a graduation for some of the comedians in the festival, where they'll come out for 4 or 5 years and they've maximized what they believe to be their networking opportunities. So they move on, but they mostly move on because they're getting 35 to 50 weeks of paid work from the networking they've done at the festival. So you eventually evolve to a point where, just like you were talking about, Dougie, is the decision has to be, okay, if I do my different 7 minutes now, then X booker is going to book me because they'll see that I have enough time to do feature work. And that's my goal for this week. Or do I want to hit my tight 7 again to potentially advance one more level and maybe say I was top 6 as opposed to top 14? So then you kind of like are weighing the pros and cons. And that's a really good situation to be in because it means that you're accomplished and also have done well in the festival. And when you're getting to a stage in your career where you're able to make those choices, then you've actually achieved the goal that you probably had set out for yourself 4 or 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to have these tough choices between, do I want to attend one of the World Series events or the paid work that I generated as a result of attending one of the events in the past?
Absolutely. And like I said, I've obtained a lot of work. We mentioned the Looney Bin. I just got bumped to headline there, which is great because I'll actually make some money on the weekend. And, you know, and that's it. So you can now, like this year, I wanted to be in a bunch of satellites, but I've got work and I can only go to a few. I'm going to try to go to the one in Vegas, Alkany, what is it called? In the end of
Notoriety.
End of April. Notoriety, yeah.
Beautiful club.
Yeah. So I'm looking to try to do that, but I'm like working all week. Like I'm in Florida. I got 2 weeks before that. I'm like, am I going to be away from my wife for 3 weeks? But hey, that's a good situation to be in, right?
That's a
speaking
unique
of good
satellite for us because it's Tuesday through Thursday, and I think Vegas is the only city we could pull off a Tuesday through Thursday event because every day is Friday night there in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it doesn't make a difference if the show's at 6 or whatever. You know what I mean? You're gonna have some people come out. It's a 24-hour day. Well, the other thing, we got to avoid some of the news, Joe, so you don't have to worry about not doing your homework. We will avoid the news today.
I read some of those stories. I read a few of those, so that's bullshit, really, seriously. I just
all right.
The uncombable hair thing I couldn't relate to at all. I was like,
you know what got me on that story? What got me on that story was, if you read it, it says there was a guy who saw the picture of the kid and contacted the mother. Why was there some guy looking at pictures of
kids?
I think that's the deeper story.
Yeah, I mean, look at that kid. He's
like
a baby. He looks like Ronnie Spector.
Did he murder 2 people? That kid?
Stay away from electrical outlets.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. I mean, you got it right. Like the first story of today was with the Ukraine thing going on, people like dumping vodka. I'm not drinking any more vodka, but they're like, they're getting rid of like Swiss vodka and American, but they're not even getting rid of vodka.
There's some company out there that named their vodka to sound like it was from Russia, and they're shitting. They're like, no. Like the next,
it's like those hot girls with the Chinese tattoo that says broccoli. Someone just made up some vodka brand that probably just says like this fat dog.
Yeah.
Which is actually a cool name for.
It's a name that Dan Fritchie would call a beer.
Or a record album.
This was a great story. The heat wave killed bees. Last summer, heat wave in British Columbia caused bees to ejaculate to death. And who hasn't done that?
That's what we do up here. Yeah.
What else are you going to do in Canada?
Yeah, we take bees to completion. That's it.
That's what Jason.
At least it was a happy ending for him.
The bees were just coming all over Jason.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't make it to the satellite. I'm a sticky mess.
That's why he's wearing a beard now. That's right. He's got a full beard. I thought this was an interesting story. Survey shows 1 out of 8 people suffer from anxiety from their phone battery going dead. We rely on this thing so much and the GPS aspects of it. And, I can't remember which comic it was. I think it was Greg from California. I'm breaking his name now. But he says the phone does a million things, but what it's supposed to do, it does it the worst, make a fucking phone call. But everything else it does great. And if you're not going to go to the, if you sign up for the comedy festival, the World Series of Comedy Festival, and you're looking for some money, the company offers more than $6,000 to smell dog poop for 2 months.
Yeah,
it's just such a weird total.
I would do that. I can't.
More than 6,000 is just such a weird way to explain that too. It's like, is it $6,124? Like, is it per sniff? Like you have to sniff 100 times and it's $6 per sniff.
Do you have to go there, or can I just go out in my backyard because I got 2 dogs?
Yeah, I think they send you the poop because it's based on food they eat and everything.
Does Karen Jaffe have to handle the postage for that? One of our comedians works at UPS. She's got a joke about those self-colostomy test things getting mailed.
It's kind of like a weird version of Blue Apron. You know, they instead of sending you a new dish every day to eat, they send you a much worse version. They send you a pile of shit to smell. But every job has it like that aspect can affect your real life. Like I remember when I was in college, I delivered pizza, so my car would always smell like pizza. But so if this was your new job, you're gonna lose some friends.
I'm surprised that it's not like what smells worse, the plant-based food or the poop. Because I think that's what they're going for. It's like, it's what we're feeding the animals. Hey, one of our advertising slogans will be the poop will smell better. It's like, buy this puppy chow, plant-based puppy chow, because the shit won't stink.
And how many people do they need to do this? Like, how many people are on the staff? Like, is there somebody like the head sniffer, and then there's like lower sniffers?
Well, much
is it
like
someone who got fired from an ice cream tasting job, or like the deodorant factory? It's like they had a real bad job.
No longer work here.
Shit now.
Yeah.
Go get a job at a dog factory.
It definitely cannot be somebody who's caught COVID and lost their sense of smell.
This smells great.
The guy's like, I lost my job.
I'm disabled. I can't smell dog shit anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway,
$6,000 smelling dog shit.
Over 6,000.
Over.
Yeah, over
6,000.
And where do you go from there? You know what I mean? It's like, where do you go from there? Like you spend that time just making easy money smelling dog shit, and
of course the next step would be human shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you just.
I mean, you're asking where do you go?
At the end of it, you get your $6,000 and a plane ticket to Bangkok, and just you're on your own.
If you're smelling dog shit for $6,000, you got it. Then if you want promoted, it's got to be human shit because you probably went from like cat shit.
That's a big step, Joe.
Huh?
Don't you think you'd like a different mammal in between, like maybe horse or like cow? Like I don't think you go straight to human.
I'd rather smell a human. I think I'd rather smell human shit than horse shit.
In my shit smelling company, you go from dog to human. We don't make you go in between. Yeah. I don't know how you run yours.
There's no middleman.
Yeah.
Why doesn't Purina just come up with like one of those poopery things? You just spray stuff on the dog shit to make it go away. Like you can spray into your toilet bowl before you go number 2.
Wasn't there a show, the movie The Jerk or something? One of the movies where he came up with the poop would go away, disappear.
The vaporizer. It was black, right? Wasn't it? What's his name? The guy from Tenacious D.
I think it was The Jerk or something.
Jack Black. He was. He'd vaporize it. He'd spray it and it'd go away. It would just completely go away.
And something happened and it messed up and started coming back or something.
Yeah, it all started re-showing
Joe, up. I don't even know if Joe has ever seen a Jack Black movie because the last movie he saw in the theater was the first Pirates of the Caribbean.
Wow, Joe,
not a big movie goer. Lots of shit out there.
Well, I think we found a person that could work to smell 6. Listen, if you're going to sit down and watch thousands and thousands of crazy comics videos, I think you could spend a little time smelling some dog shit.
Sometimes
some of it's the same. Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, that's all we have time for here on the Wake Up Late with Dougie show. I want to thank, of course, Joe Lowers and Jason Rowland from the World Series of Comedy for joining us here today. And there's still some satellites open, correct, fellas?
Yep. We just closed the Punchline in Atlanta, and I just announced the top 40 a few minutes right before we went on here. But there's still 10 more satellites you can choose, and we just started our March deal. So if you sign up anytime in March, you can pick 4 of the 10 satellites.
Yeah, and
if somebody
our
signs up
website
and says
is
they
long.
heard it on here, if somebody signs up and says they heard it on here, they can email me, or if they put it in their thing, and I'll let them pick 8 satellites.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
You didn't ask me if he could do that. So, yeah, way to go, Joe. Screwing our business model. Thank you.
Giving away the farm.
Yeah, they can just go to the World Series of Comedy.com, sign up, and then I guess Joe's going to give them twice the amount of satellites for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Just
and
tell me
my home address, and then you want me to bake them some
Who would have thought
pierogies?
the Canadian would fight this? Anybody think the Canadian would
Hey,
fight this?
we're taking stances now, apparently. The handsome man said we take stances.
Apparently.
Yeah. Enough of this. Well, thank you, guys. Be sure to go to the World Series of Comedy and sign up. And like I said, I will be there. I don't think which satellites I'm up for. We're still booked for. But I think if you're a comic trying to get work, if you're a comic who wants to build and learn and have a good, fun year this year, sign up and join. If you do miss it this year, you got next year. And make sure you put a good tape together. That being said, I'm off this week. We'll be back next week with a whole new show, but I'm going to be in Panama City the 11th and 12th of March. So go to my page at DougieAlmeida.com. The information's on my website. And aside from that, we'll have an all-new show next week here on the Wake Up Play with Dougie show, but be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We'd like to get our own YouTube channel. You know, we have it, but we want to have it not be XO44 $. We want to have it the Wake Up Play with Dougie Show channel. And so that's Wake Up Play with Dougie Show on YouTube. And, of course, follow us on Instagram and on Twitter and our fan page on Facebook. Thanks, guys, so much. God bless. Stay well. And pray for our friends in Ukraine. God bless their spirit, their courage, and their tenacity. We'll get through this. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Wake up. Wake up.